As far as top-of-mind brands go, Alfa Romeo may not be the best example, but this is still a company with a long and fascinating history, not least of all because its foundations almost didn't last their first 10 years. Now on the verge of their 100th anniversary, the company has got a lot to be proud of and a lot to show off. In a rather nondescript building in the Arese district of Milan, you'll find a collection of all manner of Alfas, detailing the company's achievements from before the time it was actually Alfa Romeo until now. From its lesser-known history as a producer of aircraft engines to its most famous classics, concept cars and race machinery, the museum is 6 floors of impressive design and manufacturing achievements. These days, the world may be more familiar with the 2007 8C Competizione manufactured in limited numbers, but that car's ancestor was this, the 8C 2300, powered by a 2.3-litre straight 8-cylinder motor. Just 188 road-going versions were made, and today one will set you back around £1.5 million, if you can find one. One of the strongest themes that comes through in the museum is Alfa's long-standing tradition of incredible design. This trio of touring superleggeras is based on the 6C 2300B and is a showcase of a time when car bodies were changing rapidly, influenced by aerodynamics and lightweight construction. Powered by a 2.4-litre motor, it would get you from A to B in pure style, but not very quickly. Top speed was just 130 kilometers an hour. While a lot of the older machines lined up at the museum may be unrecognizable to all but the most hardcore of Alfisti, it doesn't take too long to find a name that is very familiar. One of the most enduring names in the Alfa Romeo lineup is the Giulietta. It's a car that first appeared in 1955 and one that you can still, of course, buy today. It's the model that established Alfa Romeo as a major manufacturer, and it is quite simply iconic, even though this color really isn't. This Giulietta is the Berliner model, a more family-friendly version of the original 2+2 Coupe and the later 2-seater Spider. Rear-wheel drive and powered by a 1300 motor, the Giulietta sold in what was then for Alfa Romeo huge numbers, over 175,000 in its first decade of production. That success kick-started Alfa Romeo's fortunes, and what followed was a string of mainstream models that are no doubt more familiar, even if some of them aren't all that memorable. The new Giulia that everyone's raving about has a long lineage, all on display at the museum. The 70s is represented by the Alfas, not the world's most stylish hatchback, but with almost 1 million sold, it remains one of the company's most successful models. The Alfa 75 boasted 50-50 weight distribution and an onboard computer. It was the last model produced by Alfa Romeo before being acquired by Fiat, under whose ownership Alfa produced the likes of the 164, which shared a platform with Lancia and Saab models. The 156 was the first car in its class to feature a robotized manual gearbox. And the 8C Competizione is quite simply one of the most beautiful cars ever made. Every car on the road can trace its history back to some kind of prototype, and that's basically the designer's version of a free pass where they can create whatever they like without the concerns for market tastes or engineering constraints. And the results can be spectacular. Alfa Romeo's trophy cabinet of prototypes and concepts includes some cars that are most politely described as interesting, with futuristic design ideas that in hindsight look like they were made for sci-fi films of the day. Others, though, are simply breathtaking. The 1952 Disco Volante, which literally means flying saucer, was an experimental series of race cars powered by 2-litre 4-cylinder and 3.5-litre 6-cylinder motors. Of the 5 built, 4 still exist. Some estimates put the value at around $2 million. One of the reasons we all love cars so much is because of performance, that mix of power and speed and handling that turns any drive into an event. A lot of modern sports cars owe their talents to developments in racing, an area in which Alfa Romeo has a very rich history. The museum has an astounding collection of race cars, representing every era in which the company competed. Of course, you can't really talk about racing without talking about Formula One. And anybody who supports the red cars can say thank you to Alfa Romeo, because without them, Enzo Ferrari wouldn't have got the start he did in the sport. And although Alfa Romeo isn't a major force in the sport today, right at the very beginning of Formula One, they were there. Legendary racing names like Nuvolari and Farina share their history with Alfa Romeo, who helped them win the first 2 Drivers' World Championships. The company's success started before that though. Pre-World War II, their cars were winning Grand Prix, and in the years after the war, they were all but untouchable. Similarly, the Giulia TZ was a super lightweight racer that took the first 4 places in its category on debut. Designed in conjunction with Zagato, the short-tail design weighed just 650 kilograms, which meant its 82-kilowatt 1600 4-cylinder motor gave it a top speed of 218 kilometers an hour. The Tipo 33 racers were less successful, winning just 2 world championships in a decade of racing. There is a definite magic about old race cars. It transports you back to a time when insane men would drive cars that could, and sometimes would, kill them. Back to a time when motorsport wasn't about making money or selling cars, but just about racing as hard as possible. If there was one reason only to visit the Alfa Romeo Museum, this section would be it. Even though some of the cars were never seen on local racetracks, they are instantly familiar thanks to their combination of legendary on-track ability and unmistakable Alfa Romeo styling. The importance of racing to road cars is pretty well summed up in the Tipo 33 story. For a period of 10 years from 1967, they raced all over the world. There were various iterations, some successful, some not so successful, but ultimately they were world champions. And it all ended up with a very limited run of a very special road car. The Tipo 33 Stradale, with its 2-litre V8, is one of those classic cars that just manages to kind of render you speechless when you see it in the metal, especially when you're looking at one of just 18 made. And there are a lot of machines at the Alfa Romeo Museum that are just as rare and just as special. If you have any sort of love for cars, this is a pilgrimage you definitely need to make.